Tell me about this nickname, the Startup Santa.
Sure. So I also served in the military.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you. When I got out, I had the obligatory beard, right? I just never really got rid of it, and it was much more of a beard.
Sure, it was a
when I was
conversation
doing
piece,
these
right?
tech startup stuff, like I had this beard, but in that, I had all these nuggets of wisdom, and so what started going around was that Robert was the startup Santa, and he would give you gifts of startup wisdom.
Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
All right, I am so happy to be sitting here with Robert Blacklidge, the Executive Director of Domi Station. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your history, where you're from, how you got to Tallahassee. Give me the story.
Sure. You want the abridged version, or you want the autobiography?
The abridged one.
Wonderful. So I was born in Chicago. We traveled a little bit as a family, but I ended up enlisting after marrying my wife, and that put us a few different places. So Chicago, Omaha, Atlanta, Tampa are a few of those. More recently, we moved back to Tampa. At this point, I had already gotten my master's in business administrative and was working on a second master's in managing information systems, and was really focusing on the skill gap and how you could close that. And ended up launching an artificial intelligence company to work on aligning university curriculum with employer needs in real time. That was a lot of fun. I spent a few years on that, traveling the country, presenting that, and I pitched that in front of 25,000 people. Really exciting times, and we were looking to raise capital in Florida. That ended up not working out, but moved me out of Tampa to West Palm Beach. At the same time my kids were born. And for me, I had been volunteering for a little bit over half a decade now, doing entrepreneur events. So I continue to stay involved in that. I helped put Office Depot's hackathon put it together. I helped with IEEE's hackathon, Code for Tampa Bay, and started a bus. If you haven't looked at that, check it out. It's a bus, 3 days on it, where you pitch an idea, form a team, build a product, sell it in the market, and then compete in a pitch contest for 2 days against the other 8 or 9 routes that have been doing the same thing. So that really gave me light on what I wanted to do next when the investment fell through on my tech company. I didn't want to go and run a bit of a rat race trying to find the investment, and I had these 2 new children, so I wanted something a little bit more stable than a tech startup. And found the opportunity at Catapult Lakeland, which is a 40,000 square foot commercial kitchen, makerspace, and incubator in Lakeland, Florida, right off of the lake downtown. And was there as a director of entrepreneurship. And so for me, being the director of entrepreneurship was bringing resources to the local entrepreneurs so that they could be successful at what they were working on and the ventures they were trying to achieve and the goals they were going after. And the pandemic hit. And so there was some restructuring. They didn't renew my contract with them, and I was a free agent. Well, I had heard of Domi Station a few years ago when I was running around the nation chairing my tech startup. I had come to Tallahassee. It was one of the first presenters when they relaunched 1 Million Cups here. I met Scott Balog. He introduced me to a few people and gave me a tour of the town. And then I had looked at a couple different locations and ended up with Tampa or Tallahassee. Ended up with Lakeland instead of moving either Tallahassee or Tampa. That was who I went with. Well, when I was looking for work again, I reached back out, and Domi Station happened to be hiring. So they brought me on as the director of entrepreneurship there to develop the curriculum that they were teaching to the entrepreneurs. Well, we were in a really unique time. The pandemic was just flaring. We didn't know how long that was going to last. And we really wanted to continue the mission of Domi, which is to help entrepreneurs be successful and grow their businesses. And so for me, I have this national connection, this national mindset while focusing all those resources locally. So nationally connected, locally focused.
Gotcha.
And I wanted to be a scalable platform so anyone from anywhere could gain advantages from being part of this program. So we took the program completely virtual. We built a robust program where the entrepreneurs meet every single week with a new subject matter expert and learn and ask questions of how what they're talking about is relevant to what they're working on in their business. We grew that. That's 6 months now of core content. We touch on sales, marketing, accounting, legal, presentation, idea validation. And you go through this content, it's rotated, which means that every month we're changing the content and what we're focused on. And every 6 months, it starts over. And just a couple of things. You can join at any time, and as long as you stay 6 months, you will get the whole birth of the content that we're teaching and educating to the entrepreneurs.
Nice.
The second part of that is it's now scalable, it's readily available, and we are serving entrepreneurs across the country with this. Now, as we look to the future of where Domi is going to go, we have this incredible blueprint of what it takes to be collaborative in the ecosystem, to bring resources to bear, local resources and national resources. We have partners with HubSpot, Google, MondoDB, Aquarium Health. So whether you need help or CRM, we have these partners that bring resources to it. But we're also partnered with FSU and TCC and FAMU and other partners in the community, from the chambers to the OEV. You name it, we're having conversations of how can we bring those resources to bear that are available for these entrepreneurs to be successful.
Awesome.
And so let me talk a little bit about the metrics, and then we can open it up to.
So hold on,
okay.
because I'm gonna take you. And I see. So I'm gonna take you back. I'm gonna take you back to you. I want to know, what was your first job?
Oh man. So I started painting mailboxes and mowing lawns when I was 14.
Okay.
Or 13, somewhere there. When I was real young, I always had this mindset of seeing problems and working to create solutions for them, and a lot of times that ends up into business products that we could serve. So I was a little kid, and I was mowing my lawn, and I was like, there's a lot of lawns that could be mowed. I reached out to my community newsletter, and I said, hey, can I put an ad in there? And we started mowing multiple lawns, and then I saw a bunch of mailboxes as we were going around that needed to be painted and refurbished, and so I put another ad, and we started going around doing those.
Okay.
When I turned 16, though, I got a job at Target. And so I ran my own businesses while working at Target.
Wow.
Did pretty much everything you could do at Target, and that kind of led into about a little over a decade of retail experience, over half of which was management. Yeah,
so my point, and I figured you had a job that you were self-employed early on. You know, you caught the entrepreneurship bug pretty early. Yeah.
My problem though is I have ADHD. So I'm really good at the vision and identifying the problem, but I need the team to build that. And so it took me quite a while to actually build that, because I'm also an ENTP debater. So that means I'm very open to thought, evaluation, and conversation, but it took me a while to curb the directness of those thoughts.
So for those of us who don't know what ENTP is,
it's Myers-Briggs. You can get yours for free at 16personalities.com, and it basically walks you through what your personality is and how it affects different pieces of your life, from your work style to your home life and relationships.
Right. Okay. And so that's extrovert,
intuitive. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
Each of those letters stand for a specific thing, and I have it saved so I can pull it up and see what percentages that I am.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long have you been involved in the tech space?
2016. So I in 2015, I bought 2 businesses and started 3, and got my undergrad and my graduate degree. So I was a little busy. But for me, I was not in tech. I had 2 restaurants, so we did $500,000 gross. I owned 2 Blimpies. So I
Okay.
had 2 Blimpies. We were doing about $250,000 in catering business, and then I was also helping facilitate the marketing for the region. So it was a lot. It was a lot of fun, but I learned an early lesson that a lot of entrepreneurs face. Be careful who you partner with. Make sure you have an operating agreement, because in a matter of weeks, I lost the whole business. My business partner took the majority of the money in the cash, paid down business debt, so there was no recourse for me. He didn't frivolously spent it, he paid down business debt. But when you have a business like that, you need cash flow to operate.
Right.
With no cash, the company doesn't exist. So I lost that very early on. That's when I decided to go after my second master's. I was in that business. I spent a month in Excel building out this spreadsheet. You could put our current inventory in based on historical data. It would tell you how much to order on the next truck.
Oh, wow.
And so that gave me a bug. I was bit. I was like, oh, there's power in data and coding. There are easier ways than Excel to do this. And so I went after that second master's, which is managing information systems. So software development, I got a certificate in data science. So I made this hard choice. I was like, I can stay in business, I'm pretty good at that, or I can use that knowledge to create things that people need. And so that was where the coding and the software and all of that started off. Oddly enough, I had been toying with this skill gap problem, and a couple of the companies from there were different ways of trying to solve that. The gap is 2 to 3 years experience for entry level, right? And so how do you go and get a degree and get that experience so that you can be viable for an entry level position? Well, the first idea I had was, let's create projects that employers would pay for. And so it taught kind of freelancing and how to get that skill set and build it up and have a portfolio that they could bring 2 to 3 years of experience to it. It's really hard to develop talent. They come out of that education with very little practical skills. And the problem I found is it was much more, I was having to be educational. I had to teach them how to do the job, plus connect them to it. And so that, I put that on the shelf for a few years.
But let me interrupt you real quick. So would an internship help to solve some of that problem?
It does.
Okay.
And I think Domi is a great example of that. Most of our entrepreneurs go to Fortune 500 companies because we're teaching practical skills and allowing them to exercise. And yes, that's the gap, and internships are one way of doing that, but not everybody can afford to go for an internship, or luckily we're seeing a bit of a change. They're paid, right? You're getting a lot more paid opportunities for internships. But when I was doing this, there wasn't. It was, and you were lucky to get an unpaid. They just weren't willing to train. The companies weren't willing to train. So this is 5-6 years ago. And there's been a lot of developments over the last few years, which are great for the workforce. I'm super excited. But for me, I wanted to get closer to the pain point, which was education, not educating on the practical skills. It was all theory mostly, especially in undergrad. And there's some statistics I can drop if you want to get super nerdy, but about 60 to 70% of people graduate and don't go into the field that they went to school for. And that's a pretty hefty price tag when you consider the cost of going to school and the outcome. That's where my last tech company came in. Oddly enough, I actually went on Startup Bus in 2017, pitched this idea to a bus full of people, and had a team of people. In 3 days, we built a functioning prototype. We could look at jobs, and we could look at curriculum, and we could see where the gaps were. And then I took that for several years, raising capital, had letters of intent from universities. So for me, a lot of this stems from what happened right after I lost the $500,000 restaurant business. And if you're a company owner or founder or trying to start, you know how much that is like your child. That is your baby, something that you're bringing into the world, and to have it ripped from you in an instant with nothing you can do, I wasn't mentally prepared for that. Like, I think as an entrepreneur, you build this muscle of like, what's beyond me is beyond me, and I will let it go. But you spend a year plus of your life in something, have a team of people that you have to call and tell them, hey, it's over. Like, it's pretty traumatic.
It is.
And so I was standing in my driveway, completely depressed, not knowing what to do next, not knowing where I wanted to go, what I wanted to create it. And I really call this my walkabout moment. And so anybody who hasn't done a walkabout, I think we're doing an injustice to our society. Like, I'm not raising a flag or saying we have to go do it, but there is power in going and being by yourself with your own thoughts. And those who have had trauma and then found that peace and solace after, there are different kinds of people. But for me, I was sitting in my driveway staring at a red Fiat 500.
Okay.
Right? And I'm like, I just got to get out of town. Like, I just got to change my perspective. I got to go.
Change your
'Cause
environment.
staying here is not doing anything, right? That's I'm an assertive individual, right? I'm a risk taker. And I'm like, okay. So I gutted the Fiat. I pulled the seats out. Yeah, I pulled the seats out. And I put a bed, dresser, and some fans, and added solar power to it. And I hit the road.
What?
And I drove for 7 or 8 weeks.
Okay.
Stopping at places along the way, seeing friends and family. And I went, so Omaha is kind of in the middle of the country. I went down to Arkansas and then up out to Jersey in Morristown, spent a few weeks there with my cousin. Then I drove up the coast to this little town called Lubec. It's the easternmost city in the United States. I did stop at a Baca. There's a national park right up there off the coast of Maine. Beautiful, absolutely. I just stopped.
Okay.
Like one of those moments where like
It just
the
took it
view
all
is
in,
so
huh?
beautiful that
Yeah.
you need. But when I moved on from there, I thought I was going to a little island with a national park. Well, that was Canada. And they had, ferries. So I was like, oh, I'm in time for the last ferry. That means I need to be on this, right? Because I'm very just kind of going with the flow. And
Gotcha.
I think I drove about 22 hours that night.
Wow.
Because when you get into Canada, once you're on their main highway, it is black asphalt, 8 lanes, and the view is sky-reaching pine trees and mountain ranges for as far as the eye can see. So just
Sounds beautiful.
absolutely gorgeous. And I drove all the way up through into Nova Scotia, found this little town that looked like a snow globe. It was absolutely gorgeous. And then went all the way to the very tip of Nova Scotia, Money Point. The thing about it is the road turned from asphalt to gravel to dirt and then stopped at the base of a mountain. Mind you, I'm still in this very much like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm depressed, I can't figure out, but I sure as hell wasn't gonna let a mountain stop me.
Okay.
So I open my door, I grab my bag, I put it on, and I climb up and over this mountain through bushes that were overgrown, kind of like The Secret Garden, if you've ever seen that movie.
Okay, yes.
Down to the other side, to the coast, to the literal top of Nova Scotia. And I get there, and the rocks are black marble. The waves are crashing, there's ruins strewn all over the place, and then it's overcast. And I'm like, I came all this way for what? Like, no aha moment, nothing, and no change of perspective. If anything, I'm more solemn because the environment is very depressing. And so I turn around and I head back up and over this mountain. As I was coming over the top, the sun was setting on the other side. The ocean was on fire. The mountains were ablaze. And I think in a moment of pure beauty, when you're just so awestruck, your mind opens up in a way that we don't normally experience. And then I had a moment of clarity, and I realized that I had been pursuing money in pretty much everything that I do. It was really after how can I put a little bit more green in my pocket. And you can lose all that in an instant. And it can be taken away from you. You don't have any control over that. That's not you, that's outside of your perspective. And so for me, I really found that I was passionate about education and entrepreneurship because I believe education empowers you, especially when it's good education. And entrepreneurship sets you free and gives you the tools to pursue your passion. And so from there, I mean, we've touched on a lot of things, but I went and started more businesses, but they were always in this pursuit of this final goal of how can I educate people and empower them to pursue their own goals.
Wow. Wow. I'm blown away. What a story. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Stay tuned for more conversations with Nicole.
What is good, Tallahassee? If you are a brand, a business owner, a real estate agent, an entrepreneur, an artist of any kind, be sure to contact us at 7 Figure Vision for all of your photography and videography needs. We can shoot your next music video, event, documentary, or even document the process of your next flip as a real estate investor. So be sure to book us right now at VIIFIGUREVISION.com, or you can visit us on Facebook or Instagram at VIIFIGUREVISION.
Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Now, so how many businesses, what's the most number of businesses that you've owned at one time?
Oh, 5.
5, okay.
But I've had
Yeah.
10.
You've had 10?
Yeah,
You've had 10 businesses?
10 businesses.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay. And so this passion for entrepreneurship and education, it drives you, right? And so what's some advice that you would give to entrepreneurs who are starting up? And let me say this. So you have this nickname, the Startup Santa. So before you answer the question that I was about to ask you, tell me about this nickname, the Startup Santa.
Sure. So I also served in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. When I got out, I had the obligatory beard, right? I just never really got rid of it, and it was much more of a beard.
Sure, it was a
when I was
conversation
doing
piece,
these
right?
tech startup stuff, like I had this beard, but in that, I had all these nuggets of wisdom, and so what started going around was that Robert was the Startup Santa, and he would give you gifts of startup wisdom. And so that kind of spurred this brand. When people start calling you something, you're like, whatever. But then a lot of people start calling you something. Okay, well, maybe there's something here, and I should do something with it. And so I have a podcast called The Startup Santa Show, and my personal brand kind of follows that theme. I have a Santa hat. And
Yes,
those kind of
yes.
things. But it really just comes from that passion, that drive to give this knowledge out. I've had these experiences that I don't think most people get the opportunity to even experience. Or would want to. So with that comes knowledge. I think knowledge comes from experience, and experience comes from doing things. And so when you talk about what do early entrepreneurs need, you need to get off the couch, right?
Okay.
And so there's this mindset that I have, which is persistent passion, intentional serendipity. So you can be passionate. You could love your football team. You can even be persistent and watch them every single Saturday. But it's not until you put that intent into the world, that you tweet at the players, you go to the games, you yell at them, you highlight, you cheer them on, that the world responds and you get to meet the players, or you build friendships, or you build connections, and you connect with the world. So it's not enough to care or be passionate. And I think that's why passion gets the undertow, because passion's not enough. That's the start. That's what gets you through the hard parts.
Right.
Persistency is key, because if you're not persistent, then you will just burn out and you'll lose. There's nowhere in there do I talk about you have to lift 1,000 pounds every day. You can lift 1 pound every day and move a mountain, rather than 100 pounds and then be done, right? So that persistency is about small, minute steps consistently.
Okay.
And intention is let people know what you're doing. If you can't tell someone else what you're doing, you're telling them too much. Not once did I tell you about the trade secrets of what we do and how we get it done and all the nitty gritty work that goes into it. The truth is ideas are worth a dime a dozen, and execution is key. So that's where the intention comes in, putting that into the world.
Okay.
And the serendipity is it just happens. You will be surprised at the way the world responds when you put that intent into the world. And if it's good and bad, a response, right? And that response would have never have happened if you hadn't done the things that you've done. I stopped tracking bouncy balls. So in my head, so when I come to serendipity, what gave me to this mindset that like things will happen if you put them into the world is for a while when I moved to Tampa, it was like, okay, the move to Tampa, I wasn't supposed to be there. My wife had gone. I was supposed to stay in Omaha and study. Well, I was tired of studying and her being by the pool, so I moved to Tampa.
Okay.
That's a big bounce, right? A major decision that I made that I can tie everything to this date, but I could go back of her. I could say the car ride, right? Or starting the business, right? We can keep going back, but it's easy to track from big momentous things. I moved here, and then I made friends, and then I was sitting by the pool, and I had heard of 1 Million Cups, and I went to Operation Startup, and I became an entrepreneur in residence to help other veteran entrepreneurs, right? The bouncy balls that create based on your actions are all tied to intention. And intention creates serendipity.
Okay, good deal. So my final question as we prepare to wrap up is, what is your greater work? What is your greater work? You've already kind of said it, but I want you to just kind of wrap it on up for me.
Oh man. So I think my greater work is the ability to empower others to pursue their goals and dreams, because it's a lot easier to go the road with a friend than it is to go it by yourself. And the second thought of knowledge, the nugget of wisdom for early entrepreneurs is ask for help. Because nothing we do in this world do we do alone. Your world is made up of the relationships you either foster or don't. And if you want to create impact, you need to foster relationships, because that's how you create ripples through your community.
Absolutely. Very well said. Very well said. Well, thank you for taking some time to talk with me today. I appreciate it. I love Domi Station and the work that you're doing there, so keep up the great work.
Wonderful.
All right. And thank you for joining us on Conversations with Nicole, where we are connecting the community through conversations. We'll see you next time.